Hello, can you hear me? Okay, I am. Can you hear me now? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Perfect, yes.
Perfect.
I realized I set the meeting settings to automatically record the session, so it's already started.
Okay. No worries.
Okay, let's wait for 10 minutes then. Okay, I think it's time, and I hope everyone can hear me well. So because of the meeting settings, the recording has started automatically. So I would like to say this to all our participants that we are also recording this meeting, this discussion, and probably if we can, after editing, we will also probably publish this as a video, so you can have access. So let's be punctual and let's start. Thank you all for coming, and I will be moderating this session. My name is Ezgi Mercan Uygur, and I'm a lecturer in digital marketing at Brunel University of London. And this is the first of 2025 AI Thought Leadership Series that we are organizing as the AI Center. And I've been really looking forward to this session because of our mutual interest in AI-powered robots. So AI has been going on for a long time, almost everywhere. But the focus session on robots is, I hope, is exciting for you, as it is for me. So let's start. Maybe you want to do the introductions yourselves. So let's start with Professor Öztürkcan.
Thank you, Ezgi. Thank you for the invite and this discussion that we are putting together. I'm really excited to join forces with you and Rodrigo today for this. My name is Selcan Öztürkcan, and I work as a tenured docent at Linnaeus University of Sweden, which is a state institution, and I'm also affiliated with Sabancı Business School in Istanbul. My focus in my research is on digital experiences. I try to understand the interactions that users, consumers, or anyone that uses any kind of technology. And this has brought me over the last decade to also research the human-robot interactions, where I've had the fortune, I've been fortunate to collaborate with Ezgi on most of my research, as you can see through my publications, perhaps. So over to you, Rodrigo, perhaps.
Thank you. Many thanks, Selcan. So yeah, my name is Rodrigo Perez Vega, and I'm an associate professor at Henley Business School, University of Reading in the United Kingdom. And my interest lies at the intersection of consumers and technology, right, in different settings. And I think part of that research interest has drawn me towards robots, social robots in different settings, particularly healthcare, which I believe we're going to be discussing this today. But more in general, I've always been passionate about technology, right? I guess my initial passion was more at the beginning with social media and how kind of this was kind of transforming how we as consumers interacted with each other, but also with brands and companies. But then it has expanded into different types of technologies. So from social robots to virtual reality and other areas. So I'm looking forward to the discussion that we'll have today, and hopefully from the people attending the session, we'll hear some interesting viewpoints as well and questions. So hopefully it will be more like a conversation of people that are interested in this topic rather than just us telling things that probably some of you already know.
Okay, we will continue getting to know some pieces of your CVs. Let's say you're both again being very humble, but let's start. I want to start considering the title of this session, right? So in your opinion, this is also something we discuss frequently. In your opinion, how do you define robots? So what are their distinguishing characteristics from other technologies, like other AI-related technologies, such as smart products, machines, IoT, etc. So what sets robots apart, in your opinion?
Rodrigo, do you want to take that, or should I just jump
Yes,
in?
yes,
How do we do this?
I'll start with.
All right.
we actually didn't plan in terms of the order,
Yeah.
but maybe we can go one on one, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess when we think about robots, maybe different people in their minds they see different things. We have had robots for a number of years, many of them to perform like automation, and now many of you might have robots at home, right, that can do vacuum cleaning and all these different tasks. So in its essence, a robot is a machine that it's been programmed to perform a specific task, right? I think the discussion now, or what we will focus on today, is more a social robot, right, which is different from a general kind of robot. And a social robot is a machine which can be embodied, or it cannot, because a lot of virtual robots now exist as well, that has been designed to interact with humans, right, in a more interactive and social way, right? Whereas a robot vacuum cleaner will interact with you in a very basic way, because you will program it, you will press buttons, and then it will learn the layout of your home, but the interaction is very minimum. A lot of the discussion that we'll have today that are on social robots are machines that have been designed to interact with humans in a hopefully more meaningful way, right? That would be my definition. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
Well, my take is that we have had the robots around for so long, actually. They were part of the manufacturing processes, so to speak, but they were always like in a factory out there, not sharing our social spaces, so to speak. And when they were like involved in manufacturing, they were just doing one thing, one arm movement or one paint spraying or something like that. And the layout of the factory, the manufacturing process, could have been designed to accommodate the movement of the robot, so to speak. And of course, I'm talking about the embodied robots here. But now when we're talking about the social robots, they just got out of the factory. So they're all around us, sharing our social spaces and actually making their move in the physical settings that are designed for us humans. And in that, of course, there is now also another subset of those robots, like the vacuum cleaner that Rodrigo just exemplified, would not perhaps be a service robot, or would it be? I don't know. This is an ongoing discussion that we have in the academic floors already. But then there are those robots that can be moving around in these physical spaces that we share, and also provide some human-like other actions, behaviors, etc. So they are getting like more and more dissected into some fragmented terminologies as well as we speak. But that's where my interest is, how do they interact with the humans when they are not in an environment that has been designed specifically for robots, but for humans? I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And since we've started with the origin of the robots from the manufacturing industry, as we move on to more, let's say, social relationships or even working relationships with embodied robots. So let's also switch to certain businesses. So which industries do you think are seeing the most impact of robots, or will see robots dominantly in the very near future?
I can take that if that's all right, Rodrigo. So we
Yeah, sure. We said we'll take one and one.
Yeah.
So you can go first.
So My take is that perhaps also with the onset of the pandemic a few years back, the healthcare had benefited a lot from the progress of robots. It's not just that they were not used in the medicine, they were, but then the pandemic in a way induced an acceleration into the different roles and types that these robots can assume for a variety of roles. And then another industry that I can see making a big move would also be the hospitality, perhaps, on different levels for the very routine tasks. And a third could be retail. We also see a lot of increasing usage in the retail space too.
Rodrigo?
I think yes. As Selsin mentioned, the hospitality, perhaps. I mean, there is this robot in Japan, right, that has been around for a number of years, and that's supposed to welcome you into the hotel and check you in and all those things, and more we're seeing kind of service robots in restaurants and at airports that are either kind of helping tidy up plates or helping you find information in the airport or finding your ways around. I think what it's more interesting and maybe sometimes a bit unsettling for people is as the technology improves, right, and humanoid robots are entering, as Selsin was saying, more spaces that were for humans. I think like we are going to see perhaps more and more social robots in kind of educational settings. Like, could we have a social robot as a teaching assistant, for instance, right? Or could we have a social robot providing companionships, like more meaningful companionship in a care home setting, for example. And I think we are already seeing some of these things, right? And indeed, you can now purchase on Amazon like fairly affordable service robots for kind of teaching and aimed at kids that can kind of interact with the kid and do exercises and activities with them. Conversely, I've been involved in projects related to social robots where they're being deployed in care homes and hospital settings to interact with older adults. But what I imagine more in the future is that I think still they're quite robotic as we would think, right? And there is a lot of friction. But with advancements in kind of large language models, and they become more human and sound more human, and now you embody that into a humanoid robot. And we've seen Optimus, right, that was unveiled a few months ago, and then also this January we saw this humanoid female robot that was unveiled as well in the CES in January, right, which is supposed to be more like a romantic companion robot, right? And again, these are kind of settings that initially it was more like science fiction, I guess, and we could see this in movies, and indeed a lot of movies that have been released lately show this kind of setting. But I think that getting robots in those spaces will be more affordable in the coming years, right? I mean, the girlfriend robot is still quite expensive. I think it costs like $100,000, right? Which is still a big purchase, right? But what we're seeing with this technology is that over time, the hardware cost is reduced, right? I mean, think about computers, right? When they just started. I mean, to have a computer, a mainframe, you needed like a massive room, and it was pretty much unaffordable for the average consumer to have a computer. And now we don't think about that, right? Computers are widely available and affordable, and I guess the expectations of many enthusiasts in the robotic area is that social robots and service robots will become as well as affordable as it would be to have a laptop or a smartphone.
Yeah, so I guess after popular culture, like you mentioned, we're seeing them now in airports, hospitals, hotels, um, probably banks, or like you mentioned, elderly care. But apart from being consumers, we're also researchers, right? So I want to also now shift to a little bit your researcher perspective, and maybe we can start with Rodrigo since you hinted a little bit on it. So would you like to explain briefly your project on independent living or social robots? I know you have been doing um, many projects and research involving these technologies. So, would you like to
Yeah,
wear the researcher hat?
yeah, the researcher hat, of course, Ezgi, thank you. So as I was hinting at the beginning, I mean, I've been involved for the last maybe 3 years in a project that is looking at the use of different assisted living technologies. And some of these assisted living technologies are social robots, right, that are aimed at older adults. And it's it's a project where we have been collaborating with the local authority here in Reading, right? Initially, looking at how older adults interact with the robot and how open they would be to having this kind of robots at home, right? Where ideally they would be able to support people, older adults, to live independently for longer, right? So that's kind of the overall aim. And as a consequence of that project, more recently, the NHS is investing in a number of different projects. So the NHS is the National Health Service in the UK, because not everyone is aware, and they have been investing in different kind of seed projects across England to try out these different technologies and assess the impact that it can have on service users, right? This is not necessarily consumers, but service users that are receiving adult social care. And one of these projects is precisely deploying a social robot called Genie in people's homes, right? And it has actually proved quite useful for certain locations, right? Because especially in some parts of England, as we go kind of further north, there might be sometimes not easy to access if there's a lot of rain, or it can take an occupational therapist or a social worker a lot of time to actually visit different people because their homes are geographically quite distant, right? And through the use of social robots, um, older adults are able to speak with kind of a social worker or an occupational therapist, and also the adult social care team or healthcare professionals are able to set up reminders and alarm and kind of check-in virtual check-in visits, and yeah, people are generally interested, right, on this. I guess part of this project, and it's an ongoing thing, is that the team is looking to assess the impact of this, and it's not only about the economic impact, like, okay, is this saving us time because now an occupational therapist doesn't have to spend an hour or 2 hours a day just traveling from point A and B, but it's also looking at, okay, is using this technology is increasing the workload of occupational therapists or not, right? Because you need to learn how to use the technology and find the best utility for it, or is it reducing it over time or not? Conversely, how are service users feeling about this? Like, do they actually appreciate that because of the technology they can talk to occupational therapists or their friends more frequently, or do they feel that using this technology is actually reducing their package of care, right, or not, which also is something that is quite important. And also we're looking at how kind of family members or informal carers feel about this technology, because also some of these robots have apps that can be accessed by family members, right? Which can be also useful, like knowing, okay, my mom or my dad, they've been saved, there was recorded movement at home and all these things. And it's a very complex balance, because there is a lot of integration and there's a lot of these social robots at home. You could actually integrate them with kind of sensors that can monitor like pattern of behavior of life and all that. And then on the one hand is good, because then someone in theory can be looked after 24/7, right? About how, and if someone, especially for older adults, like having falls is something prevalent and one of the main reasons for then needing to be hospitalized and all that. But on the other hand is, okay, how do I feel about the fact that all these sensors are at home, right? And who can access this information and all that. So it's not as straightforward as one would think. But what is exciting about this project is that one is being deployed in a real setting, right? And two is that from the university perspective, we are talking with all these different stakeholders, right? Not only the service users, but also on the other side, like local authorities, people involved in adult social care, and also friends and family.
And since you are in this project for you've been for a long time, would you agree, or I don't know if you would agree, but do you think the funders, not only scientific funders, but also like local authorities or governments or companies, the priority right now is on certain demographics, such as, the elderly, that technology is expected to provide, the highest good, the highest return, such as prioritizing projects or acceptance dissemination amongst the elderly, or some restricted populations, people with maybe disabilities, etc., compared to, let's say, youth or maybe high income, general average consumer. Would you say that?
I think a lot of priority from government is towards, at least in Europe, is towards older adults and older users. And that is mainly driven by the demographic composition in Europe. So Europe has an aging population and an inverted demographic pyramid, and that will continue to increase, right? And as we live longer, that gives a lot of strain to kind of healthcare services and adult social care. And that is why potentially one of the reasons why a lot of the funding in terms of doing this is aimed at this, because in theory, it's supposed to provide some efficiencies, like the example that I just mentioned of how this robot was being deployed, particularly in places where there's a lot of older adults, but they live not close to each other, not in a city, right, or a town. Then actually it becomes problematic in terms of adult social care to be able to provide the care that they need, and technology potentially is a solution to that. So I think in terms of the funding and the priorities, they sit more around that, but because it's driven by the needs to support people as they live longer, and the strength that it will give is everyone needs kind of to be looked after in a hospital, for instance. It will be more problematic. So if we're able to prevent falls, if we're able to prevent things that then will require a more intense intervention, then in my experience, governments are more keen to try this type of technologies and to see if they could work.
Yeah, and since we said Europe, Southern, you're also based in Sweden. So, what would you say? What could you say about robotics research and priorities there?
I'm based in Europe, of course. I'm living in Sweden, but I also have an eye on what's happening on North America and so on. So my take is that, especially with the care, may it be healthcare or the social care services, I think what matters is that if there is a single payer in the system. Like in Europe, we have the single payer. It's mostly, as a taxpayer, you get that as a return, the healthcare and the social care from your government. But it's not like that, for instance, in the United States, where it's not a single payer system. You have a fragmented insurance system there. So when you have the single payer, I think it's a bit with more opportunities in terms of pinpointing the pain points in the system, like Rodrigo was pointing, the distance and the demand for more personnel, and that's just not simply available. So the system is, in a way, I think, is more open to identifying its pains and then giving a try to new technology for such solutions, I would say. But then there's also another factor. Even in Europe, like we have the digitalization, and then there are those cultures that have been more forefront in embracing the digital technology. So we have the indices that we talk about across Europe. So I am living in one of those countries that has been historically on the top of such charts where daily life is pretty much digital already compared to some other European countries. So that cultural background is also, I think, making individuals who are interacting with such technologies either more accepting and open and embracing these technologies. In a way, you can say that they're more ready in technical terms, or they're more distant psychologically for such services to be provided to them. So even within Europe, we have a variety, I would say.
So let's switch to the demographic factors then. We are also, as researchers, all three of us were also from very diverse backgrounds, and we have maybe observations and research experience in different countries and cultures. But keeping our researcher hats again, what would you say about the demographics, like differences between certain cultures or differences between certain generations, even Gen Z versus the boomers, etc. What role do you think these play, or um, in terms of certain cases?
Yeah, I think it matches a lot. Like if you grew up in a home where there was a robotic vacuum cleaner and you had a robotic lawnmower, you had like the snowblower, robotic, etc. So this was part of your daily life. And here's another new robot coming into your life. You're like, maybe, let me give it a try, because you have had some interactions that have been established. But then if you are from a generation where this was not the thing, like if you're from my generation, for instance, where you had life experience when there were no cellular phones, let alone the smartphones, then perhaps the chances that you have grown up in a home that had the robotic vacuum cleaner is pretty slim, right? So your familiarity matters a lot. And with the younger generations, they have the space and the opportunity to have built a better familiarity, I would argue. And that goes through with the AI also that we are seeing around us during the couple of years. I mean, look at the uptake from the younger generations in just giving the AI a try. The younger generations were like pretty much they're willing to chat with it already. That was not something, chatting with a technology was not something pretty new to them, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I add to that, Ezgi, if you don't mind?
Sure, please.
it's I think from my own research and interacting with older adults and robots, I think often there is this misconception that older people will not engage with technology, right? There is this we just assume like, oh, all this new technology is just young people that would like it, and to some extent there is some truth to that, and as Selsen was mentioning, depending on the environment in which you grew up, it will become normal, right? So for instance, I have a lot of kind of tech stuff in my home, right? Like voice assistants and Google Homes and all that. And I have young children as well, and they're used to that, right? And they actually interact with them quite frequently. But from my experience of talking to older adults, and I'm speaking 75 plus, 80 years old, is that I found like there is a group of older adults that they are still engaging with these technologies, and they have Alexas and voice assistants and all these different things, and they would be open. And in fact, when they interacted with a social robot, because a lot of the software, it's quite intuitive, and if you understand how Alexa works, you kind of understand also how to interact with a voice with a robot, because the interface is quite similar. They would naturally adopt this, right? So there is apart from kind of the demographic element of age, there is a psychographic element about how open or how open to learn new things are. And this openness to learn new things, yes, it might be reduced with age, but it doesn't have to, right? And also talking to kind of older people, sometimes they were saying, well, I'm just not interested anymore to learn a new thing, right? I'm happy with the technology that I've learned until maybe I was kind of 60. That's fine. Like I can use a computer, I can use a telephone. I don't want to learn a new thing. I don't see any more value to that. So yes, I think that is kind of an important kind of caveat in terms of, yes, there's generally older adults, maybe they might feel less keen to kind of learning new things, but there is a group of older adults that will carry on trying new things, right? And that they're open to learn those new things. And I hope when I'm 70 or 80, I will be part of that group as well. We'll see.
Can I add something to that?
We share it, I guess. Sure, of course, Elsa.
Well, I see a big room for marking the user-centric design here, right? I mean, who are you designing this technology? What's your target group here? Perhaps that also makes it a bit more democratic in terms of the innovation to be, adopted to daily life. But we don't tend to see that always around the engineering circles. I was trained as an engineer, so I have both a bachelor's degree and a PhD in engineering. So I think that's also very important lately with all these robotic technologies and etc. Assuming the role so that you are actually putting together a technology with a user-centric mindset, instead of just doing it in your own lab and then expecting everyone to just use it because you have designed it for them with whatever idea that you had on your mind, but including the stakeholders all throughout the design process could be the difference at the end.
Yeah, I totally agree with the role we should play in bridging this gap, like all technologies, the gap being the link between the designer, the engineer, and the end user, the human, the consumer, etc. And I also agree with Rodrigo's comments that now that I think about it, I think the younger population, they are more forced to engage with these technologies in especially work settings, etc. But the elderly, the older population probably will see more advancement in the private domain or in certain domains, right? Because they are not forced to use them, but they are using them at their homes maybe, or for totally other purposes, compared to other generations that are maybe working with the robots or have to use the AI without without being given a choice. And before we move on to the questions, I also want to switch to our educator hats for a while. And Selcan has also had some recent news that she is now part of the AI network in her university, and also you are, for the first time, you have delivered a course, a whole, what we in the UK call a module on robots in marketing. So would you like to tell us a bit about these AI-related developments and robots in education, teaching, and learning?
Sure. I'm appointed as my faculty's AI representative in the AI network that has been newly established in Linnaeus University. And in there, we are building a strategy to incorporate AI on different levels and possibilities and opportunities in the university. May it be for teaching, research, services on all dimensions. So we need to embrace this technology, but how? And also, another question is that we need to provide some upskilling to the staff that we have, because we need to be keeping up with our approach to actually keep the digital transformation going on within the society, so that we are in a better position as we provide the university services for the society. So that's my hat for that. And then the second thing that you mentioned, yes, I've launched a course called Robots in Marketing. And I'm very fortunate that I am placed in a faculty that had allowed me to do this little experiment, and it went really well. It saw a growing, interest in the students. And the idea that I came up with it was that I was already doing the research around concepts related with marketing and service robots. And I thought that I need to do better. We need to do better for preparing our students professionally for the intersection of robots that they're going to be facing in the roles that they are going to get in the job market, especially with robots becoming more integrated in these consumer-facing industries. I thought that it's crucial for them to understand their role in marketing on different levels. So we cover things like human-robot interaction, but the use of robots and customer engagement, etc. But also I cover things like ethical considerations. And I see one of the listeners, Federico, has a question on the regulatory implications over there already. So that's part of the course. I want to build some awareness around this, since these students are going to be assuming such roles. And it has been a quite good reaction. And I hope to keep the course running in the years to come too.
Yeah, absolutely. There is an increasing demand, but we can't say our supply is that quick or not enough. So I've also developed a new module on robots and AI in marketing, and it's the second time, but I realized that you actually need many more weeks, so maybe maybe double, triple the time that we have to talk about these subjects and discuss these subjects with the students, and at all levels, not only masters or students with a certain background, but starting from the day that they are entering the university or entering the higher education system. So there are also discussions about high schools, but since we are at the university level, there is really a very long way to go. in a very, very hopefully short amount of time if you want to catch up, right? And Rodrigo, would you like to chip in? How is your teaching and your higher education experience integrating AI and robotics?
I think for AI, and I imagine a lot of colleagues from different universities in different places, particularly generative AI, I guess, because all of a sudden accessing a GPT was quite accessible through platforms like ChatGPT and others. It's been a kind of trying and error kind of thing, trial and error, right? In terms of how can we integrate this in different ways. And what I see in the UK at least is that even the government is kind of trying different things. So for instance, the Department for Education had a call last year for projects around using AI for marking, for instance, in schools. And it was I think it was like £2 or £3 million budget, right, for different organizations from small to startups to develop prototypes which could be scaled up to use this type of technologies for marking, right, at least. And at a more like local level within the University of Reading, I think initially there was a bit of kind of apprehension, I guess, in terms of how should we be using this, and also I guess the adoption amongst students was quite big, I guess, and it has made us kind of rethink how we assess and how we design assessment as well. But I see now more engagement. So we do have now a series of seminars within the university about how to use AI for research or AI for teaching and learning and all these different things. And at a personal level, I teach a lot of digital related modules, and I do encourage students to use some of these technologies because, I mean, in marketing and in business, companies are using these technologies anyways. So, yeah. Thank you, Ahmed.
And these discussions also make me question more and more our place and our jobs as academics or let's say teachers in general. So every day, more and more, I think more and more jobs, more and more categories, more and more people are feeling the risk, or the perception of losing their jobs either to AI or to robotics. So I would also like to ask a little bit about this, the discussion we call job replacement or job augmentation. And this is also in line with Federico's question about potential large-scale adoption of robots and also potential large-scale adoption of AI. How are you visioning this potential future?
Well, I'm pro AI to begin with, but I'm pro human AI. I joined this scholarly thought that was out lately also by Dharma Jamolo in his lecture as he accepted the Nobel Literate Award. The thing is that AI is just another technology, and actually it has been around for so long. I mean, if you look at the early footsteps, you could see that it has been around since 50s, 60s, but we tend to have these AI winters. If you look at it historically, like there are those aha moments, we get all excited as a society looking at it, that it's going to solve us all. And then there's like, it doesn't really deliver that. And then there's this drop, so we tend to have these cycles going on around. So my take with this recent excitement of job takeover, etc., is that I actually think that is a similar process. But now we are also seeing the boundaries, that there are those things that you can do better, but then it's not going to solve everything that you need to be solved, right? So you're still stuck with your laundry and dishwasher and all of that stuff, right, in your home. So my take is that this is a technology, so you can do many things. You can, with a knife, do a surgery, save lives, or commit a crime, right? The same tool. So this is just another tool. So I think we are trying to figure out, as Rodrigo was saying, with trial and error, trying to figure out how to best use it and what its boundary conditions are. So that's my take.
Just to add to that, I think if we look historically at how technology has been perceived, like if we look during the Industrial Revolution and where they were introducing these steam machines and early automation, there was also a lot of in the media and all that similar headlines about kind of job displacement and all that. So it's a common theme, I guess, to fear technology. I guess one of the reasons why we fear it a lot now is because it's becoming better at doing things very quickly, right? And the pace at which technology is evolving is like something we haven't seen before. And personally, I think there will be a reshaping of job roles and what we do. And going back to the educational side, I do tell my students when we start the first lecture that the way marketing is done now and the way it's going to be happening in 5 years' time very likely will be completely different, right? And also when I speak with colleagues working in industry, I can see already the displacement of jobs. So I know people working in marketing agencies and they don't need as many junior copywriters, right? Because now with generative AI is quite simple to generate content in seconds. At the same time, evidence shows that content generated purely by AI sometimes doesn't perform as well. So there's still a kind of a human element to it that needs to be inputted. But for how long that will be, I don't really know. And I guess we can make wild predictions of what will happen, but I mean, the kind of things I was thinking 5 years ago that would be happening are not happening at all. And instead, there was other technologies that came as more disruption. But building on the question that Federico was putting, I think governments should be more proactive in terms of coming up with a plan, because if there is mass job displacement, as some people think will happen, then that has a risk to transform society, right? And we're seeing a bit some elements like there, at least in the UK, there's a lot of kind of programs and efforts to help people reskill, which I think that's going to be kind of a common theme. We will need to reskill because the capacities for AI and robots, the capabilities will likely carry on increasing. So I think that's a very important topic. Another important topic related to that is that there is this narrative like AI will displace jobs and technology will do all these things. And we give a lot of agency to AI, right? But I think we need to remember that, at least for now, it's still humans within organizations, within universities, within governments that are making those decisions. And they have agency to decide, should we be using this technology or not, right? So we need to kind of also stop and reflect a little and say, okay, yeah, all these things are done, but at least for now, at least we are still in control, I guess, of how we use and how we deploy these technologies. And these are important matters and questions.
Yeah, exactly. And like being pro AI or stating pro AI or pro robots doesn't mean that there should be zero regulations, like zero oversight, right? On the opposite, it means probably planning better, coming out with better, to the point, more efficient regulations. I mean, not more, but also not less. And we see that there are varying degrees of interference, regulations, and oversight across industries, across countries. So we'll see how these will level out. So I had some more questions, but since we have 10 minutes, I would like to also invite maybe Selcan, we were just discussing this issue this morning. Gülara asks if we think the opposite of anthropomorphism, so robots becoming more and more human-like, what about what she calls robomorphism? Would it accelerate or slow down robotics? And we had initially started thinking about this in the context of, surgeons, for example, healthcare industry. So would you both like to?
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, with like any technology, this new technology is also changing our culture. I mean, that's the very definition, right? The change is inevitable. So the way that we do things, the way that we interact with each other or the machines, all of this is part of the culture. So our culture is also taking in the new changes in our environment. And this brings also what Gülara also referred as robomorphism. It's not just the embodied actions, perhaps. It's all, you can also see this in other platforms in communication. I mean, just check your wall on LinkedIn. It's like almost like everything is AI written, right? So we are like, and like I know this from Ezgi's head movements already. Like you can call it if something is written by AI, but then there's a norm now emerging. Like it has to be AI level language skills, or it's not any good better, right? So we have this. We're embracing this, and this is worth researching. So I don't have a readily available answer, but I think we are already seeing these effects, and we need to know more as researchers in the field just by doing more research. And I totally agree with the regulations and etc. But there are those things that you can do with the regulatory and legal frameworks. But this question is more on the tune of the culture. So no regulation, no legal framework will adjust for that. This is how we embrace the technologies. That's what it matters.
Rodrigo, what do you think about the what we call a machine-like humans, or robot-like humans, workers, professionals?
I think it's great. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's funny because a lot of the robots that I interact with and that are designed to interact with other people, they're designed to look not very threatening, so they look friendly, they look like a robot rather than like a human. Partially because if things become looking too much like a human, we can get freaked out. And particularly imagine someone that might have dementia or something, and if it looks too much of a human, it might even pose like ethical questions if then this person starts believing this is a human and all that. So I think there will be, very interestingly, one of my PhD students is precisely exploring that element about until what point we are willing to go before we start feeling very threatened by the robots, and second, we start feeling this kind of speciesism in terms of we as humans are superiors, and therefore our rights and things need to be protected. So I guess we don't feel very threatened by a robot vacuum cleaner or by a robot thing that is in a restaurant to collect the dishes, but we might feel more threatened once we start having humanoid robots that look human, that we cannot distinguish what they do, and that start taking on our managerial roles. So we'll see. I think someone had a question.
Yeah, it is very related to your answer, actually.
Oh, was
So
it?
what kind
Okay.
of interaction, what kind of human-robot interaction is the goal?
I guess it depends on the use case, right? That you're thinking. If you're looking for a companion robot, so you live by yourself and you want someone to keep you company, I guess. And there's already some technology related to that, but it's not embodied. But some sort of interaction that kind of remembers the conversations that you had before, and that you feel like they really kind of understand you. To that respect, there is also some research that is trying to create robots that are able to kind of detect our emotions, like how we feel, right? Based on the voice, the tone of voice, and then there is also physiological responses that can tell whether we're comfortable or not, and all that, and that also emulate feelings, right? Or emulate emotional responses. But I guess the key element here is that this emulation, right? Because at the end of the day, is at least with the technology as we have, it's not real, right? Is artificial, artificially generated. So.
Well, I would ask the main question: what is it that you're trying to achieve with this interaction, right? Then it will be defining what to expect from that too. So what I mean, to me, like using any technology, we have to start with that main question: what is it that we're trying to achieve? Then the rest follows in that sense. So sorry for answering your question with another question, but I'm a researcher, so that's how my mind works.
Yeah, and I guess we continue seeing many different types of relations, right? So reflecting the literature, also we're gonna see servant-master relationships, companion relationships, co-worker relationships, doctor-patient relationships. Yeah, it's of course, maybe probably even intimate relationships, right? Starting with AI, but also I'm expecting its reflection in robotics as well.
There's a line of research by colleagues in Netherlands. They're looking at like if the robot is within a certain height, within a certain gender look-alike, etc., would it be less threatening, for instance? Of course, that also takes you another fault line in society, because then you risk exacerbating the already existing gender inequalities in that sense, perhaps with the technology coming into the picture. So we're all going to figure it out.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Do we have any other questions from the audience? I guess we have 2 minutes left. We've been very punctual.
We have the regulatory implications for large-scale adoption, but we kind of answered that we need it, but hopefully it's going to come around. That's our best answer, I guess, right?
Yeah, we kind of tried to hint on this very broad question, but I don't know if Federico, do you have, would you like to elaborate further, or are you asking with a certain aspect in mind? I'm not sure.
I apologize for my voice. I'm recovering from a bad bug, and that is not really helping. So apologies for that. No, my question was really to try and understand really the broader societal implications, regulatory implications as well. Sounds to me like this is going to be a very big effort, and it will require consented involvement really of different parties, different stakeholders. I believe a human-centered design and system level kind of design effort would be necessary. So what would be your advice for the panel really? What would be your advice in terms of, I wouldn't say streamlining the process, but kickstarting or proposing effective ways of moving things forward?
The principles of democratic innovation is already out there. Perhaps we should start by embracing them.
Yeah,
So that
one
we're all
sentence
involved in that.
answered.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And lastly, an example of robotic marketing or AI marketing. Which example, which case is proven fascinating for you? Maybe if you have one.
I mean, like when you're in a shop, you tend to ask for the opinion of the seller sometimes. What if this is a robot and understands from your movements and your gestures what it is your preference is likely to be, and then comes up with some advice for certain products. You know? And this is an example that I use in the course anyway.
Mm-hmm. Recommender systems, right? Both AI and robots. Rodrigo, what's your favorite marketing case or digital marketing case?
I think my favorite case from recently, digital marketing, and I like it mainly because it shows kind of how things can go wrong, is last year in Scotland, in Glasgow, there was a company that was selling a Willy Wonka experience to customers, and they used generative AI to do their advertising and their digital campaigns. And obviously with generative AI, it looked very, very impressive. But then the reality wasn't as impressive, and customers were quite disappointed by it. So I guess, yes, generative AI can produce all these images and very fantastic things, but if then in the real world it doesn't materialize, then it can lead to negative outcomes. I'm trying to find the link actually of the example, but
well, if you go for the terrible examples, just visit Amnesty International's website for recent terrible examples of AI implemented. Yeah, like you can have like really, really weird stuff.
Yeah.
Where?
Amnesty International and their reports. I can forward you one for the UK too already.
We definitely need a much longer time. You know, we're living in a very different post-truth world with all these AIs, and we will continue.
Thank you, Ezgi. This was fantastic. Thank you, Rodrigo.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I hope you found that
slightly over time, but I guess all participants, you can reach out to Selcan, Rodrigo, or me. We would be happy to catch up for further collaborations, questions.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you very much for attending. I don't know, do you have any concluding sentences? Would you like to say something before we...
Thank you, everyone who joined. It was exciting to start this series.
Okay,
I guess
thank you
always unplug your robot if you leave it at home, so that or keep it locked somewhere, just in case.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.